doing the bond initiative and the RSS and everything. Given the fact that you're running for Senate this year, could we expect that filibustering and opposition to major things to be ramped up at all?
No, I've been here 13 years. I'm not going to change now. Those were bad ideas. Bond, putting the state, when you're losing $800 million a year, as we were last year until the federal money come in, so you just turn around and borrow another $800 million to go build buildings somewhere is nuts. And no, I'm still opposed to, we're going into a budget cycle now that because of the federal dollars, we didn't go back and fix the structural problems that we had in our budget. So we're going to have even worse problems in the future. I look at even with federal money this year coming in, we're going to have to do budget cuts. And the next year is an even bigger hole. So to turn around and reverse the principles that I stand on because of political gain is not going to happen.
So what do you attribute the fact that all your fellow Republicans in the Senate are endorsing your company, including listening to surveys like that?
Yeah, they didn't know I was running, and there was a lot of pressure, among our party not to have a primary. Sarah Steelman was, the conversation that I had with some people was, well, we got to keep Sarah out of the race, so let's endorse one, and maybe Sarah won't run. And this was not something that I was thinking about doing. And in fact, I was perfectly happy with living out my term limits and being able to go home and grow my beard long and write nasty letters to the editor. But when you look at the situation that we're looking at, is unless some people start standing up and saying that hey, we're going broke. You cannot do what we're doing in a household and expect to be able to pay the bills and send your kids to college when they're older. Someone's got to stand up and say that this is not working. We're spending ourselves into oblivion. And this is a decision that I reached after session was over. I went home and I wanted to take a couple of weeks, and I got just thinking about looking at statistics like this. And one of the things that I've heard is insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. If we continue to send people that become part of the problem rather than the solution, that constantly deficit spend, we shouldn't be surprised when our deficits continue to grow. So it doesn't matter to me. There's a lot of people that think they want a future in Republican politics, that they think they need certain people to be able to run for a higher office. Well, I don't really care. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to say what needs to be said. If the voters entrust me to go up and start trying to stop this train, I'll do it. If I don't, I'll go home and be happy and begin the letter writing campaign with the editor.
Are you being contacted by people in the party to try to get you out of this race?
No, I'll be honest with you. The party has not talked to me about getting out. I'm doing this because, see, I think I'm doing a lot of this because I care about, I think the Republican principles are the only thing that can save this country. The policies of fiscal responsibility, unless we start practicing those, we're not going to make it. I think the Republican Party is the last great hope to turn it around, but it's only if our party is strong and energized, and that we hold the people that we elect up to a high standard. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen is there's a lot of frustrated people out there that look at both parties and say, they don't speak for me anymore. And what we're going to see is a mass exodus of a lot of people leaving, I believe the majority leaving the Republican Party to a third party because they're looking for someone that will actually stand up and say, this is wrong, this is the direction we need to go. So I think what I'm trying to do is strengthen the party by getting us back to the basics of what our party was founded on. And if we don't do that, I'm afraid that we may lose a lot the people that now support us for third-party candidates, and it'll be very hard for us to win any type of statewide elections if we can lose a big part of the base.
Chuck, are you saying basically that you're trying to get Roy Blunt to see things more your way? I mean, I talked to Tony Rich later.
You think it's a legitimate question that I ask? You know, since I can't sit down and talk to him, you know, since we cannot have a one-on-one discussion about the principles and past policies that we've had, what is wrong with asking the question of someone that was in leadership, what happened during this time? You know, I think that as a Republican that believes in fiscal responsibility, that's a very simple question. That what happened when we worked hard to put people in charge? What happened? You know, why did nothing change except the R and the D on names? You know, how can people that failed when they were in charge turn around and offer a better plan on how to maintain financial stability in the nation when they were in charge it didn't happen? You know, I'm a relatively simple person, but if I go buy a used car and the used car dealer doesn't fulfill his side of the bargain, I won't go buy a used car from him. You know, and I think that elected leaders that have the future of my children and grandchildren at stake ought to be held to at least that high a standard.
How can there be a reconciliation if you don't win? You've said bad things about Roy Blunt as part of the problem.
Well, I don't think I've said that. I think our party is.
Well, saying that the guy who might be your flag bearer in the next election is part of the problem, that's not good.
Well, you don't think the opposition party is going to bring these points out?
Yeah, when it comes from within, though, it kind of makes voters think twice.
Well, it's kind of hard to argue with them.
Hey, Chuck, if I could, you've talked before about how the deficit increased while the Republicans in charge. And
Well, and Democrats in charge.
And you noted before that Roy Blunt was part of the leadership when the deficit increased. So what's your major announcement today?
Major announcement, you know, it's major to me, and may not be major to you all, but I'm starting the campaign of just asking what happened. You know, what happened when Republicans were in charge? You know, and be able to stand. I want people to be able to stand on the record, just like, you know, my record is an open book here in the Missouri House and Missouri Senate. You can ask me anything about anything. You know, I'm sitting here now trying to think of a decision I made that I think was wrong. And you know, I'm human, I make mistakes, but I think that I've always followed a policy of fiscal restraint and tried to figure out a way to make people understand that the people that earn the money usually spend it more wisely, and that government growth is not a good thing because the people that are out working hard day in and day out are the ones that are going to have to pay the bills. What I think you're seeing in these key parties is an awakening of the silent majority across the state. There are people that when I talk to young legislators that come up here, and I tell them that when you sit in a hearing room and you have lobbyists come in and argue one side or the other, what you have to remember is the person that cannot afford a lobbyist and does not have a lobbyist is the silent majority of people out there that are paying all the bills. And you always have to keep those people in mind. And what you're seeing now in the key parties is the silent majority, I believe, beginning to wake up and say, you know, these guys are not being very wise with our money. The checkbooks are not balanced. This can't continue. And I think you're seeing a lot of frustration of people out there that want to see a change in direction and get back to some